Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be talking about the series that I am planning to prioritize in the rest of 2025. I have made a bit of progress when it comes to the series that I've wanted to read, both in fantasy, sci-fi and also historical fiction, but there are many more that I want to get to. I have created a list, I think it's of about 10 series. Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 series. So, and I'm going to walk you through what the series are, very brief plot summaries, and then why I'm planning to read them sooner rather than later. I would say that this list is loosely prioritized, but honestly, a lot of it depends on my mood. And as I said, this is spanning across fantasy, sci-fi, and historical fiction. The list is majority fantasy, but there is a little bit from other genres as well, specifically historical fiction and sci-fi, because that is what I'm looking to prioritize for the rest of the year as it relates to series specifically. One series I do want to call out that is not on this list is Malazan, Book of the Fallen. And the reason why I haven't put it on this list, realistically, I just don't think I'm going to get to it this year. I'm planning to read it next year because I know somebody will ask me about that series. I was going to originally read it this year, but there's just too many others that I want to get through. And they're shorter, so I can finish them off quicker as well. And then next year, I'll kind of make that like my big series and I'll make that a priority. Okay, so let's jump into my list. And as always, if you see me looking down, it's because that's where my laptop is and that's where I've made my notes. First series on my list, and one that I'm going to start in the month of August, is the Dagger and the Coin series by Daniel Abraham, with the first book being The Dragon's Path. There are 5 books in this series, and this is a high fantasy series that explores the interplay between the military, i.e. the dagger, and economic power, i.e. the coin, in shaping societies. I believe this series really dives into the lives of individuals who rise to power, often very unprepared for the choices that they face, and it deeply examines the complexities of governance and conflict, which, if any of you know anything about my reading, that is a perfect description for a series for me. It sounds like it has everything that I want in my books. And the reason why I want to prioritize this is because it has all the things that I love in my books. It has intricate world building, from what I understand, really great character development over the course of the 5 books. And there is a rich tapestry of political intrigue and moral ambiguity, which is one of my favorite things to read. I have read quite a bit about how the series provides a very nuanced perspective on power dynamics, which I think is going to make it particularly compelling for me, because as many of you will know who've watched my channel for a while, I love discussions around the complexities of leadership and societal structures and how these things are built from the ground up and how they're perpetuated and often how they also collapse as well. So I am so excited to read this series. A couple of us are going to read it in my Patreon as well. I think, if I remember correctly, we're planning to read 1 book a month. So by the end of the year, we should have finished it off, assuming everything goes well. Cannot wait. I love Daniel Abraham. He's one of my favorite authors. Can't wait to see how this series shapes up. The next one on my list is an author that I have actually tried reading before, but I've not had great experiences. But again, this series sounds like it was written for me. I've actually tried reading the first book previously, but I wasn't in the right mood. So I have a feeling that I will actually like this one, but I will have to make sure I'm in the right mood for it. And that is the Tyrant, Philosophers series by Adrian Tchaikovsky, with the first book being City of Last Chances. This series also has some of my favorite book covers. The book covers are absolutely stunning. I believe there is going to be 4 books in total. I believe 2 are out, 1 is about to get published, and then the 4th one is coming out probably in the next year or 2. And then there is also a novella as well. And this is set in a city called Ilma, which is under occupation by a ruling power. And the narrative follows a bunch of different characters as they navigate the challenges of occupation, resistance, and revolution. I believe it weaves together elements of political turmoil, societal upheaval, and also personal transformation in the context of the broader societal upheaval. And the reason why I want to prioritize this one is because I believe it is deeply philosophical, And, you know, Tchaikovsky, even though I haven't had great success with some of his other books, I do think he is very good at crafting stories. I have heard that there are very complex, compelling character arcs in this series. Because of the elements that I mentioned previously, it has themes around, you know, obviously occupation and resistance and the human spirit's resilience, which I think when you look at it in the context of 2025 and what is happening around the world, it can provide a thought-provoking and engaging narrative that really resonates. So I'm very, very, very excited for this one. The next one on my list is the Iconoclast series by Mike Schell, with the first book being The Aching God, or I think it's just Aching God. And this is a trilogy, and I believe there is also a prequel novella. And this is like dark fantasy. And as many of you all know, I love dark fantasy, I love grimdark, I love anything that's kind of in between those two as well. And this follows the journey of the protagonist in a world of gods, power struggles, and also personal redemption, things that I love in my books. The narrative really dives into themes around identity, belief, and the consequences of divine intervention. And that is actually something that I've really been enjoying in my books, the whole concept of divine intervention and being able to see gods directly interfering with what is happening to change the course of events. And this one I want to prioritize because of Shell's rich prose, and it is also a very deeply philosophical series from what I understand that offers quite a unique reading experience. I think this is the sort of book that really challenges the reader to question, you know, like things around the nature of faith, power, and also personal agency, which sounds ideal to me. The next series is a big one, and that is The Black Company by Glenn Cook, with the first book being The Black Company. And this is a pretty big series. I believe there's about 10 books in the core saga, and then there are also additional volumes. So it is a very expansive world. This is a gritty military fantasy series that chronicles the adventures of an elite mercenary unit, the Black Company, as they navigate the complexities of war, loyalty, and survival. From what I've seen, the narrative offers a ground level view of epic conflicts, focusing on the experiences of soldiers in the midst of larger political and magical upheavals, which sounds incredible. I have talked about this very briefly on my channel. I actually love military fantasy, and I love books where there is a very strong military contingent, because these types of books tend to be very much about kind of two things. Like, one is strategy, which is something that I enjoy reading, but then it's also about how average individuals find themselves in situations where they're given a lot of responsibility and power. And I really like that tension between kind of the individual versus, you know, like the unit. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out in this series. Why I want to prioritize this? One, because it's been on my list forever, and two, it's because from what I've heard from others, this is a very unflinching portrayal of warfare and its impact on individuals, and it provides a very raw and immersive experience as a result of that. There is, I believe, like a very strong focus on camaraderie, moral ambiguity, and also the, as I kind of already referred to, the realities of combat, which I think kind of makes it feel like it's going to be quite realistic, but set in a fantastical world. And I've also heard it's very character driven, and this basically ticks all the things that I like in my fantasy. So I cannot wait. With this one, I think I'll probably end up kind of reading a book a quarter, and this will be like a long-term investment that I'm making in this series, because I do believe, even though I think you're following the same characters, the books kind of do function like standalones. But anybody who's read this series, let me know down below, and please confirm that, because I've only heard that from like one or two people, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well. The next one is a historical fiction series, and this one has been on my list forever, and this author has been on my list forever, and I really need to get to her sooner rather than later. And that is the Alexander trilogy by Mary Renault, with the first book being Fires from Heaven. This series, I believe, has like a core trilogy, and then there are a bunch of other like sequels that are set in the same world. So I think in total it's about 7 books, but the core story is 3 books. And this is a historical fiction series, as you probably have guessed by now, that really deep dives into the life of Alexander the Great exploring his formative years, his relationships, and the events that ultimately shaped his destiny. I believe it's quite a nuanced portrayal of Alexander the Great, obviously, you know, one of history's most iconic figures, and it blends a mixture of obviously historical events with very rich, detailed character development. And this one I want to prioritise because I'm actually very interested in Alexander the Great. I have read quite a lot of non-fiction books about him, but I haven't actually read fiction kind of version of Alexander the Great, and I just really want to. I believe Reynolds also did a lot of research for this series, and when you combine that with her evocative prose, it really brings the story to life and adds an extra layer to it, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Naturally, with a book following such a key historical figure, it gives us also an intimate glimpse into the complexities of leadership, ambition, and also legacy. And as somebody who's very interested in kind of character psychology and why people do the things they do, and then adding in that additional historical context, this series seems like one that I'm absolutely going to love, so I can't wait. The next one is a duology, and this is a sci-fi duology, and that is the Doomsday book by Connie Willis, and the first book is called The Doomsday Book. And this is a duology that follows time-traveling historians from a future Oxford, which is actually where I was born and raised, as they study pivotal moments in history, which sounds fascinating. I believe the first book focuses mostly on the Middle Ages, and the main character gets trapped during a plague outbreak, which leads to a mixture of historical exploration, but then also personal drama as well. And the reason why I want to prioritise this one is partially because it's set in Oxford, which I know Oxford very, very well. I was born there. I know it very intimately. Will always be my home, and it will always have a piece of my heart, and I love it very dearly. So that is a part of it, but I think the other part of it is that I haven't read a ton of time traveling science fiction, and I would really like to. And I've also heard that Willis blends a mixture of humour, tragedy, and historical insight to create a really compelling narrative that resonates both on an intellectual and emotional level, which sounds ideal. And I've also heard that because there is this time traveling aspect and they're going through multiple periods of history, it provides a really interesting insight to those different periods of history through the lens of the main character. And it sounds pretty exciting to me. The next one is a series that I've had on my list also for ages, and I still can't believe I haven't got to this one because a lot of people call this kind of very quintessential grimdark. And that is the Acts of Cain series by Matthew Stover, with the first book being Heroes Die. You might actually be able to see it. It's like, I think it's like over there somewhere. I can't actually tell. This is a dark fantasy series that also blends sci-fi into it, where actors are sent into a virtual reality world. And the narrative explores themes of identity, morality, and the blurred lines between reality and fiction, as one of the main characters is navigating a dual existence, which sounds really interesting. Why I want to prioritize this, because one, I've had so many people tell me to read this book because of my particular tastes, but I think it also is quite philosophical and offers quite a unique insight into heroism and also the nature of reality. Just sounds ideal to me. Like, this is something that I've thought a lot about, particularly as it relates to virtual reality, because that's actually a space that I worked a little bit in. I was kind of tangential to it, but virtual reality as a concept is something that I've thought quite a lot about. And yeah, I've just heard that this is very dark and it's very gritty, and that kind of sounds exactly like the sort of stuff that I like in my books. The next one is a self-published series, and this is a series that I really want to get to because it sounds like one that I think I'd actually really like, and that is the Severing Sun trilogy, I believe it's going to be, or it already is. I don't know if the third book is out yet though, by Vaughan Roycroft, and the first book is called The Severing Sun. This is a true epic fantasy trilogy that follows the journey of our main character, who I believe is a prince, and he is an outcast and embarks on a journey to reclaim his identity. Very kind of classical fantasy, which I don't read a ton of, but I believe this is quite a fresh take on it, so I'm willing to give it a chance. And with a book like this, it really deep dives into themes around identity, prophecy, and the complexities of leadership in a completely fractured world. This is a series that I really want to prioritize because, as I said, it's a fresh take on classic fantasy tropes, and it blends traditional elements with modern storytelling techniques, which is something that I quite like. And it focuses really on character depth and moral dilemma, which gives us a really compelling narrative, which sounds absolutely amazing. I also love the covers of these books. I think they're really, really pretty. They look like pieces of art. And yeah, I'm just super excited to get to the series. I've heard really, really good things about it. Then the next one is one that I've talked about already quite a bit on this channel, but I still haven't started it. And honestly, there's no excuse now. And that is the Broken Earth trilogy by N.K. Jemisin, with the first book being the 5th season. And this is a trilogy. And this is set on a future supercontinent where societies endure recurring apocalyptic events known as the 5th seasons, driven by drastic global upheaval. That's all I'm going to say about this one. The reason why I want to prioritize this one is because N.K. Jemisin is just one of the GOATs when it comes to kind of sci-fi and fantasy. She is an author that I still haven't read, and you know, I'm going to start with one of her most kind of critically acclaimed series, and that is this one. It is also because I've heard just generally very good things about her writing and her character development, and also that there is quite a gritty edge to this series in particular. So honestly, that's all I have for this one. Like, it's an author that I need to read. It's a series that I need to read, and yeah, I can't wait. Next up, we have one that I've also been wanting to read for a while, and that is Hyperion by Dan Simmons, with the first book being Hyperion. This is a 4-book series called the Hyperion Cantos, and this is also a science fiction series that follows 7 pilgrims as they journey to the distant planet of Hyperion. And this is kind of, I believe, told in a similar way as the Canterbury Tales. I believe the author was influenced heavily by the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer, and each pilgrim is telling their story, revealing personal histories and the mysteries surrounding the planet. I believe there's quite a strong focus on like religion, philosophy, and also futuristic technology, which is a mixture of things that I'm very, very interested in. Why I want to read this particular series: masterful storytelling, very complex dynamics and character development, which really creates a rich and immersive narrative. And because of the very deep philosophical exploration, it's just a series that I've really got to read. Like, this is a series I think that was almost written for me, and I'm really, really excited to get to it eventually. The next one, and I've got 2 more left. The next one is another series that I've had on my list forever. All of these have been on my list pretty much forever. And I'm almost making this list as a promise to myself to at least start most of these series this year, because it's criminal that I haven't. So the next series is the Sandman Slim series by Richard Cardray, with the first book being Sandman Slim. I believe there are about 12 books in the series, and it is ongoing. But I believe this series is quite episodic in nature. Don't quote me on that. Anybody who's read it, feel free to let me know down below. But they can be read, you know, like you don't have to read them following on from each other. This is an urban fantasy series that follows our main character, who escapes from hell and returns to Los Angeles to seek revenge on those who betrayed him. And it combines a mixture of noir, horror, and fantasy as the main character navigates a world filled with demons, angels, and magic. And that sounds pretty awesome. I don't read a ton of urban fantasy. It's probably like one of the subgenres of fantasy that I like the least, but it can be done well, and I'm still looking for an urban fantasy series that is done well, and I'm hoping this will be it. Why I want to prioritize it is partly because of that, but also because Cardray has very dark humor. It's quite fast paced, and I do really like characters that have revenge as a main motivator. And there is also a blend of really interesting supernatural elements, which is, again, not something that I particularly look out for. I don't really like supernatural fantasy in general, but in this one, I'm willing to give it a go, given the nature of the setting and given the nature of the character. Sounds excellent. Can't wait to start it. And then the final one on this list is the Raven's Mark trilogy by Ed McDonald, with the first book being Blackwing. And I've heard generally pretty good things about the series. It's a trilogy, and it is grimdark fantasy that is set in a world that is completely ravaged by war and magic. And it follows our main character, who is a mercenary who navigates a land filled with corruption, dark forces, and betrayal. And there is a lot of exploration around loyalty, sacrifice, and survival, which sounds pretty awesome. And the real reason why I really want to prioritize this one is because I've heard really great things about the world building. Now, world building is not something that I always necessarily look out for, but I think when it's done well, it can be a character in itself. And I've heard that the world building is very atmospheric in this trilogy. There's really great complex characters that really creates a compelling narrative that really deep dives into human nature, which is something that I really like. As with quite a lot of the series on this list, there's a lot of exploration around moral ambiguity, and there are apparently also some quite intense but very well written action scenes, which again is not something that I tend to look out for, but if it's done well, I do really appreciate it. So I would say this is a series that I really want to get to. I doubt I'll get to this one this year, but as always, my mood might decide that it wants something like this, in which case I will pick it up. So that's it, folks. Those are the series that I really, really want to prioritize this year. I want to try and get to at least half of these. And by get to, I mean start at least half of these. At the very least, The Dagger and the Coin, City of Last Chances, Black Company, and probably Fires from Heaven and Doomsday Book are ones that I'm going to get to this year. But as I said, mood plays a massive role. But I think I'll at least get to half of the series on this list. So let me know down below in the comments if you've read any of these series, whether it's one book, two books, all of them. Let me know your thoughts, because that might also play a role in how I prioritize these series on my list going forward. Let me know what you liked, what you disliked, if there are any that you recommend I stay away from, and if there are any that you think I should prioritize. So I'm really excited to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, folks. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next one. Stay safe as always, take care, and I will see you very, very soon.